like Marauders 4. But those will be the core units instead. Let's come back to the resource counting station. Predy, once again, has proven by some miracle that he's able to swing ahead despite having been behind on this Viking count. Now, this might look a little bit funky. What's going on here, right? Look at the food count. Predy, who is ahead in food. Morrow, who's behind on food. Going to the unit counting station. Wow, Predy somehow ahead on Vikings. Morrow is behind on Vikings despite getting this very, very, very fast starport. The very fast reactor starport, really sprinting ahead hard. Well, we can realize that Predy has been the one who's been most active about advancing to this area. Doesn't seem like much, but Predy has the extra ground, was able to get this expansion started a little bit earlier. And even though Morrow's is landing a little bit earlier, no, excuse me, I'm saying that backwards. So even though Predy is getting his expansion up a little bit later, there we go, Morrow's did land his a little bit earlier, this extra starport is coming out quite a bit sooner. And there's been enough pressure on Morrow that Morrow was forced to like get this tank, forced to play a little bit more defensively. This extra space is giving Predy freedom to get more units and more buildings that he wants to. And of course, no real super crazy need to get an extra reactor right away. Predy is just going to look to get, I would say, 1 or 2 production cycles on this starport, and then probably think about ways then to start getting an extra reactor on there. But you know, even here, Predy, if he sieges up, he has a little bit of space advantage. Sure, you can get a superior Viking count, but you will not have this advantage of having more freedom to expand. Just look at the way this feels. Predy, oh my god, both Xel'Naga Watchtowers, doesn't that top right expo just feel safe? Just digest that feeling for a moment. It just feels safe. And of course the scan to check out what's up, but still, look at that expansion. Now come over here to Morrow. Oh no, yeah, look, he has all these Vikings here. Sure, the Viking count is really high, but nowhere looks safe to expand. Oh god. And that is absolutely true. Space is such a key factor in this matchup, especially anytime you have an immobile unit like the tank. There it is. Notice how it's not moving. It is so immobile. Even Xel'Naga Watchtowers, notice how it's a structure. It's immobile. Anytime immobility is a huge factor, getting good control of spaces is very, very important. You can circumvent all this by going, I'm going to make a lot of air units, and, you know, that's okay. That's reasonable, but it's just so fragile. Because I want you to note, Predy was ahead on this Viking count, and here he comes, slamming out a whole bunch more starports. Oh, there goes that active factory making many reactors. Unit counting station, 1 tank. Morrow, 1 tank. Not ideal. And oh no, the landed Vikings, Morrow is screwed. He has to retreat on ground. If he lifts up, he is done for. That is just a horrible, horrible spot to be in. But interestingly enough, notice how by landing the Vikings, you can move forward spatially a little bit more. This is a good technique. I'm pretty sure this is just patrolling in a tight spot. Makes it much easier to keep things together instead of just constantly right-clicking. Nice little move there. So, yep, that's, oh my god, look at the huge Viking war. Morrow was ahead by 2, or excuse me, by 4. Now look what happens. This is what happens when you're behind in Vikings. Here comes Predy trying to bring more Vikings in, but, you know, this is why players value the Vikings so much. Just because of this goofy shit. But now, Predy's just, oh, maybe I'll make more Vikings. Yeah, and see that? This is why I think that this will eventually be steered away from. But even so, I'm mildly disappointed in these players. How tragic to see them still going tank Viking. And Vikings decides to depart as well. I'm tempted to take a quick look at the game after this. Oh yeah, notice how Morrow landed for like a nanosecond and then immediately lifted back up again. Correct move 100%. Because what really can Predy do at this point? Keep making Vikings? These are his only unit-producing structures. What's going to happen is that Morrow is slowly going to pull ahead, and there we go. He needs to just keep a few lifted, and then he can land here. He kills off the tech lab first. No more tanks coming out for you. And then just easy cleanup with the extra Vikings. And of course, I don't think we're going to have quite enough time to do the last game. But considering these players' trends, wouldn't be surprised if there's more tank Viking antics, but I want to encourage you, even though I didn't quite get the chance to explore these games, I watched them blind. I actually did not watch them previously because it gives a chance to just do the analysis as though you were the player playing, to think about it on the fly instead of just me knowing exactly what's going to happen. But it's still, I want to re-emphasize how... I want to re-emphasize that the Marauder is increasingly going to become a key unit. So here are some openings I want you to think about. You go for the Marine Hellion push, but right when the Hellion is making, you also start an Armory. And you begin making the Tech Lab after the Hellion finishes, and then you get a Thor. Then you get a Command Center and a Starport. And what ends up happening is you can get about 2 Thors out pretty fast. You're very difficult to kill from pretty much anything, especially because, like, if he does do a huge attack, you just send like 9 SCVs to repair your 1 Thor and it kills everything, because Thors can still one-shot Marines, so early Marine tank Viking stuff is much easier to deal with. Then you can start getting Ravens really fast, and then you can just make a ton of Marauders as you're expanding. And you're pretty safe from Vikings. You might, or excuse me, from Banshees. You might need to get a Raven and some turrets. No problem there. You're safe from any early pushes. And if he does set up some sort of nasty little contain, you just wait till you have 8 to 10 Marauders and just lead with the Thors. They take the first shots, then stim around with the Marauders and bust it. And then you have total map control. It's so easy and it's so fun and effective. And I want to see less Tank Viking stuff. Now, as much as I love to make fun of Tank Viking, that is not a reason not to do it. It's still, obviously, if you can get in these situations where you sense your opponent is making nothing but Vikings and you have the Viking advantage, then exploit that by all means. No reason at all to try to get fancy and sack this air advantage that you have 100%. But yeah, so here's a great question by Neuralite. So saw some games Morrow played today and lost to Cloaked Banshees. And then he made the strat his own and crushed the other Terrans with it. So I want to talk a little bit about Cloaked Banshee rushes. That is another really surprisingly versatile opening, is to go for the Cloaked Banshees very fast. I would say you have to make 2 Banshees and you do have to get Cloak. But nothing extreme, no 2 Starport stuff, just 1 Starport fast Cloaked Banshees and you can expand immediately. What's good about this? Well, if your opponent goes for this Tank Viking shenanigans, you can just carefully maneuver your Cloak Banshee around. Obviously, you're going to deny the push. The only way he can possibly defend is if by some miracle he has 2 scans and can scan and kill both Banshees. And even then, you just make a 3rd Banshee and he still can't push you and kill you. And also, you can just skirt around the edges, killing things off. It forces your Tank Viking player to close in. And what is so important about an immobile player, you heard me say it many times today, controlling space. If you can't get out there and get to a good space on the map to constrict your opponent's movement, you're not going to be in good shape. You need nice money spots to siege up. Love Cloak Banshee Rush. In fact... I play around a lot in Terran vs. Terran with different openings, and I just never do Tank Viking because I think there are just too many ways to exploit it early on. Obviously, players have gotten some good wins with it, so they've kind of stuck with it, but take my advice and just play around with Cloak Banshee Rush, play around with some Thor rushing, and you can get in some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So, yes. So here's a great question by Sevja, or perhaps it is Sevya, depending on where you are from. Thors just get wrecked by critical mass of tanks. If you forfeit air control, the other guy just kills you with his range. So, now, I want you to note that in that statement, there was Thors get wrecked by a critical mass of tanks. Now, first of all, I'm not going to try to define how many is critical. Like, 14, easiest thing in the world. 15, he's gone critical. You know, a lot of tanks is pretty decent against a lot of Thors. However, it's hard to get that many tanks. Oh my god, it's hard to get that many tanks. Let me relate to you a game I played against QXC, which hurt. That was painful. So what happened is I went for a tank-focused game. I'm not even necessarily going to say Tank Viking, but let's just say tank-focused. I made a lot of tanks. And what happened at the outset is QXC was trying to be aggressive with some Marauders, some Barracks play, and I managed to hold it off. And I got actually to a really good position on the map with my tanks, and I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. But I accidentally tried to advance a little bit farther forward, and he was going 6 or 7 barracks, and just rushed up to all my tanks, killed them off, and I was on 2 bases in the process of taking my 3rd, and because I was all tank focused, I kind of went, ooh, okay, I kind of gotta defend now. So I defended, I set up my tanks, and what did QXC do? He took just 3 more bases. Nothing I could do about it. I had too many tanks. And I had to be immobile. I had no ability to just push forward aggressively. And even though I tried to get the critical tank number, and I had like 20, 30 tanks, sure, in the first attack I killed most of his stuff, but like 5 seconds later, his million unit-producing structures had enough stuff to kill my paltry remaining forces. The expansion rate that he had was so superior. Now, pretend for a moment that I was going tank Viking. What would have happened? I would have tried to get in a good spot. Bunch of marauders rush up, kill off my tanks, and I think to myself, now I can't make Vikings. I need to focus more on tanks. Yeah. And I have the same problem as before.